Good morning. We are learning Leila Nishmas, Mindel, Mariam, Bas, Kalman, Reuven, her Neshama, Shev, and Aliyah. We have a lighter Amud over here. Some Magadata, Yud Amud Beis at the top of the daf, 2 dots. Okay. So the last thing we spoke about yesterday was the fact that you're not allowed to greet someone, but not just greeting someone. You can't say Ein She'elas Shalom. You're not allowed to say Shalom in a Beis HaMerchatz, in a bathhouse. Okay, so the Gemara says Ein Sham She'elas Shalom begins by picking up from where we dropped off, that you're not allowed to greet someone with the word Shalom. Misayeh le Rav Hamnuna Mishmei De'ula. This supports a teaching from Rav Hamnuna, who said in the name of Ula Amar Asr L'Adam She'itin Shalom L'Chaver Beis HaMerchatz, who said that it's prohibited to say Shalom to someone in a bathhouse. Why is that? Mishum Shenemar, because it says V'yikro lo Hashem Shalom. Okay, the pasuk in Shoftim about Gidon, one of the Shoftim, and he built a mizbeach, and he called him, i.e. God, Hashem Shalom. So we see that Shalom is one of the names of Hashem, and that's why you cannot use this name in a bathhouse. By the way, it's something to think about when you greet someone. We don't necessarily say Shalom Aleichem so much, but it's a beautiful institution. You know, the Gemara tells us that Boaz, the pasuk in Rus talks about Boaz greeting the people with this name, greeting people with the name of Hashem, and they say this was like an institution. Some of the Mefarshim say that Boaz lived during a bit of a dark time initially in Jewish history, where people were not acting appropriately, and Boaz goes ahead and institutes that you should use the Shem Hashem in welcoming people and in saying hello to people. And the Mefarshim explained the reason behind this is that he was trying to elevate people, trying to remind people of who they are, like that, to recognize the uniqueness of the fact that we have this, Tzelem Akim, that we're connected to Hashem, and therefore to say to someone Shalom Aleichem and using the name of Hashem was a way of trying to elevate people, even though now I'm almost casually using the name of Hashem. The Gemara invokes Eis Lashem Heferis Osecha, that this was like a bold move, that they did something which was really in some ways against the Torah, because you shouldn't be flippantly or so casually using the name of God, but he felt like he had to do so because in doing so it elevated people, it gave them a certain stature, reminded them, I'm connected to Hashem, and this was necessary. And really throughout the story of Rus and through the actions of Boaz, it really transforms the people and elevates the people to such an extent during that time. So it's little interesting and important background to the name of Shalom. Okay, so bottom line is that's what Rav Hamnuna says in the name of Ula, that you're not allowed to say Shalom because it's the name of a god. El Me'at, the Gemara asks, if that's so, Hemnusa nami aslamim arvesakisi. You also should not say faith. Okay, in the bathroom. Dichsev hakel haneman. Pasuk says God of faith. Okay, so the Gemara says, "V'chitema achinami." Maybe you want to say, maybe you can't say faith in the bathroom. V'amarava bar mechasya bar chama bar gurya amarav shari lemeimar hemnusa v'esakise. Now we have a memra that's ultimately from Rav, who says that a person is allowed to say faith in the bathroom. So the Gemara says no. Hasam shem gufe lo ikri hachi d'mitar kaminan elaka mehemna. He says there, it's not the name itself. Rather, as it's proven from the fact that when it's translated, if you look at the Targum over there, it says Elaka Mehemna, a God of faith. It's an adjective. It's not the name of God, but rather it's qualifying. It's telling us who God is. It's a God of faith. Hashem Gufe Ikrei Shalom Hashem Shalom. Here, it's a name of God. He called him Hashem Shalom, God peace. It's not God of peace, but rather God peace, as opposed to a God of faith, which was more of an adjective, and therefore you are allowed to say faith in a bathroom. You're not allowed to say Shalom in a bathroom. There is even a discussion. There's 2 interesting discussions about this. One is, what about someone whose name is Shalom? Are you allowed to greet that person? Oh, your name is Shalom. Cool. Okay, are you allowed to greet Ross by calling him Shalom in a bathroom, right? Is that allowed? Or let's say a mikvah, right? You see, right? You're allowed to say, hey, hey, Shalom, right? Would that be allowed? Right? Would that be allowed in a bathroom? So it's machlokas poskim. Ultimately, the Mishnah Berurah rules that we're mekel, that you are allowed to say Shalom if it's for a person's name, but to greet someone, again, Shalom Aleichem, it's not just hello. You're really saying God's name, and therefore that cannot be done in a bathhouse. There is also machlokas about writing Shalom the poskim discourage writing Shalom in a letter. Like starting a letter by saying Shalom Aleichem in a letter is discouraged because there's a concern people are going to throw the letter away. And again, Shalom Aleichem is really, we don't think about it. It's something important to think. In Kiddush Levana, you say Shalom Aleichem, something you're saying like God, like you're invoking God every time you speak to the person, and therefore they encourage not writing Shalom Aleichem in a letter. Some you'll see this rarely, but some what they do is they take out the vav, so it's like Shalem Aleichem, which is not a name of God, but it's understood what a person's trying to do, and therefore is a way of kind of getting around this. Okay, Max, you look like you're going to ask something.
Sure, we could find Shalem somewhere as being Hashem's name also.
Apparently not. I'm gonna trust the big guns who said that it's not. Okay, so now the Gemara goes ahead, and once we quoted Rava bar Machastia in the name of Rav Chama bar Goria in the name of Rav, we quote some other memros, some other teachings in their name that at first glance don't relate, but the truth is it also relates because it comes in to discuss the value of Shabbos as well. Okay, so we're coming from two angles. On the one hand, sometimes the Gemara does this; it has mentioned someone's name, and especially when there's like a unique linkage of this person and the name of this person, name of this person, and it's a chain that we don't always see. It starts sharing a bunch of memros, a bunch of teachings from that person, or from that chain specifically. Over here, we're doing that, but also it ties back into Shabbos. Let's see, two dots. Amar Rama bar Chasya, Amar Rav Chama bar Goya, Amar Rav Hanosim Atana L'Chavero, Tzarech Lehodio. Okay, a person who gives a gift to someone else, you have to let the person know. Shenemar, as it says, Ladas Ki Ani Hashem Mikadishchem. This is in context of Shabbos, and the God says, "I'm giving you Shabbos Ladas, so you should know that I'm Hashem who made you holy." So what does this mean? Latani Namihach, the Brisa spells it out a little bit more. Brisa that supports this, Ladas Ki Ani Hashem Mikadishchem. The Brisa explains what those words mean at the end of the pasuk regarding Shabbos. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. It's unpacked to mean as follows. God said to Moshe, "Matana Tova Yeshli Beis Genazi. I have a special gift in my treasure house. V'Shabbos Shema. Its name is Shabbos. And I want to give Shabbos, the special gift to the Jewish people. Lech v'hodiam. I go and tell them. Okay, Mikanam Rav Shimon Gamliel. Okay, Hanosein pas latino, a person who gives bread to a child. Tzarech leodio la'dio imo. You want to let the mother know. Okay, my avidle. How do you let the mother know? How do you let the mother know? You don't have a phone. You know, how do you let the mother know? Amrabai shaifle mishcha umalale kuchla. What you should do is like drop a little oil on the kid's head. Okay, don't do that to my kid. I'll kill you. What's it called? Drop a little oil on the kid's head, basically, or put a little makeup. Kuchle is like a little makeup on the kid's eye. And obviously, the idea is he comes home looking weird, and mom's like, "What happened?" He says, "Oh yeah, this guy gave me some food." Oh, okay, now I appreciate it. So again, that's the idea. You give someone a gift, just like Hashem told us that Shabbos is a special gift. We're gonna Shabbos special gift. Hashem wanted us to know that. He didn't just give us Shabbos. He said, "I'm giving you something from my treasure house. It's special. I'm not just giving you something. I'm telling you it's special. I want you to recognize the gift that this is." So too, you give something to a child, let the parents know what it is. How do you communicate to a parent who you're not there in front of? Tip them off that something happened, and then the parent will ask, and ultimately the parent will ask the child will tell the parent. Ask the Gemara, nowadays that we're concerned for witchcraft, a kid comes home with oil on their head or some makeup on their face, we're going to think that some witches were involved in with the child. So you shouldn't do that. Amar Papa, let sprinkle some of the food that you gave the child on the child. In other words, which nowadays maybe the child, I don't know, my child will do it happen anyways, right? The kid, what do you eat? I know what the kid ate because I look at their shirt. So same idea. Basically, if you're giving the kid like ice pop, make sure some ice pop drops on the clothing. Kid comes home, be like, "Oh, what happened? Oh, this person gave me an ice pop. Oh, now I'll thank them." Okay. The Gemara now asks. We'll come back. Let's just finish the Gemara first, and we'll discuss this a little bit. Eini v'amar Rav Chama bar Chanina hanose matana l'chaver ein tzarich ladio. We have another member which says that a person gives a gift to a friend, you don't have to let him know. Shneimar u'Moshe lo yada ki karn arpanav. The passage we read this other week, that Moshe did not know that his face shined. Right? Basically, after the second luchos, after Moshe went back up to the mountain, his face had this incredible shine, and Moshe did not know it. So, B'dabrito, he did not know that he had this shine when he spoke to him. So, Lokasha. And so clearly God did not tell him about the shine, meaning God gave him a gift. You have this special shine coming from your face, Moshe, but God did not tell him. So you see that God does not tell you when there's a gift. So Lokasha, habimilsa avida legluye, habimilsa delo avida legluye. The difference is, if it's something which will be recognized on its own, there's no need to tell. If it's something which won't be recognized on its own, then you should tell. In other words, Moshe is going to figure out at some point, everyone's looking away when he's speaking, oh, what's going on? Oh yeah, my face shines. I get it. But Shabbos, apparently, we would not figure out how special it is on our own, and therefore God has to inform us. Okay? And similarly, you send a child home, you give a child a little bit of food, it will never become revealed, and therefore it's important to let the person know. Ask the Gemara about Shabbos David Legluye. The Gemara says Shabbos, a person will recognize how great it is. The first will explain, meaning the rest, the relaxation, the peacefulness, the incredible nature of Shabbos. As adults, as teenagers maybe not, but as adults we all recognize Shabbos is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. It's amazing. And Shabbos is like this incredible gift. We all recognize this. Yes, it's true. Says the Gemara. You'll recognize it, but matan schara lo avi legluye. The reward. The spiritual reward we have no way of knowing. In other words, yes, to recognize the this worldly type of gift of Shabbos, 100%. Any thinking person can recognize how special it is, but to recognize the spiritual gift of Shabbos, we would not recognize, and therefore Hashem went ahead and told us how special this gift is. Okay, so just two things. One is the Mefarshim do distinguish and say if you're giving someone a gift as charity, as tzedakah, then obviously we have a famous discussion about the fact that the greatest form of giving someone tzedakah is to do so in an anonymous fashion, to do so in a way that the person does not know. We want to maintain their dignity. When it comes to tzedakah, there's a concern of shame. A person's going to be embarrassed to receive something, and therefore we specifically avoid letting them know. But when it comes to something where it's between equals, it's a friend, or it's someone, it's an acquaintance, and it's not a matter of giving someone something where there's going to be shame. On the contrary, by letting the person know, it encourages and engenders a sense of love, a sense of connection to the person, and therefore a person should go out of their way to tell them. I remember that being taught this. This is strange, but this is like just really stuck with me. This is when I was in base marriage, like I don't know, 25 years ago or so. The base medrash was always very full. It's like important to like grab your seat, and people would take your seat if you didn't always get a seat. And so I come sit down in my whatever, and I sit down in my seat, and so the guy next to me turns to me and says, "I just want to let you know, and that I saved the seat for you. Someone came by, I knew you sit here, so I told them that you're sitting here, saved your seat, and I'm telling you this because I want you to know that I care about you." And it really stuck with me. Like I remember, it crossed like, oh, thank you, whatever. We should grow our relationships. We should let people know how much we look out for them. It's important to express that. It's not enough, the famous, you can't just think I love you. You got to express I love you, right? So in other words, it's important to let people know what we're doing for them to engender love, to engender connection between people, and that's what we're learning over here. Okay, fine. Okay. Rav Chisda havenaka b'yadei tarte matnasa de Torah. Rav Chisda had two gifts of an ox. What does that mean? He was a Kohen. He received a matnas kahuna, which were two gifts from the ox, and he had them. And once they're his, he's allowed to give them away. He doesn't have to eat them. They're not, there's different types of gifts. Some things can only be eaten by a Kohen. Some things the Kohen is allowed to give to others. So he had these two things which were given to him. It's interesting. He lives in Bavel. In Bavel, really, matnas kahuna do not apply outside of Israel. So there's a whole discussion, but it seems like at some era they would actually practice to give matnas kahuna even outside of Eretz Yisrael. Then eventually that practice fell away. But this was at a time when they were given manos kahuna in Bavel, and so he had these manos kahuna. And he said, Kol man da'asi v'amar li shmaitza chadata mishmei de Rav, yehivna lei nilei. Anyone who comes and tells me a teaching from Rav that I'm not aware of, I will give them one of these gifts. Amalei Rav Merchasia. So Rav Merchasia, the person that we've been talking about until now, comes along. He says, Hachi Amarav. This is what Rav said. A person that gives a gift to their friend, you have to let them know. So the member that we just said, so he says he taught him this teaching that this idea you have to tell your friends when you're giving them a gift. So Yavanile, he gave him one gift. Amar Chavivin Alecha Shmaitza de Rav Kulei Hai. Do you really love the teachings of Rav to such an extent? Amalei, he says yes. Amalei. So Rava Bar Mechasi responded, Hainu da Amarav Milsa al Vishaihu Yakira. He responded, this reminds me of another teaching of Rav who said that a thing that a person wears is precious to the person. Like a wool or a fine wool that a person wears that they're used to, it's more precious to them. What this means, Rashi explains that there are items which you could buy in a market which have a certain value, but for the person that's accustomed to them, they're actually worth much more. I need this thing. This is something which is important to me. So it has like a market value, a more objective value, and then the subjective value, since I'm accustomed to it, is much more. So that's what he's saying. You're like, wow, you love Rav's teaching so much? He says, yeah. This is where Rav taught us that clothing, and he was using this as a parable, so to speak, that clothing that people are accustomed to is worth more to them. Similarly, teachings, if like you are very into this type of teaching, it's going to be worth more to you than it's going to be worth more to others. Okay, so that's a second. Now we taught him a second thing. Amar Rav Hachi, he said, did Rav really say this? Basrais adifali. The second teaching is even better to me, mikamaisav, than the first one. V'have, if I have more, nakin achrita, v'have nakin achrita, yahivna lach, I have more gifts, I would give you more gifts. Okay, thank you so much for teaching me these memories, and the Meiri and others basically pull out from here the importance of running after teachings, right? We have like a bit of a casual, laissez-faire way of like, if I learn something, it'll come to me, great, but to run after teachings, to pursue the opportunities of learning from great people, to recognize how special it is, and not to lose out on those opportunities. Sometimes we have whether it's people coming to town, whether it's people that great people, to recognize the value of learning specifically from them, and that's incredibly valuable. Okay, two more teachings from Rava Bar Machasi Amarav Chama Bar Guri Amarav. Yeah, Rava Bar Machasi Amarav Chama Bar Guri Amarav. Ulam al Yishana Adam Beno Yishana Adam Beno Ben Habanim. A person should not treat one child differently. Shebishvil Mishkal Shnei Slaim Milas Shnasan Yaakov Yosef Yosef Misharbanav Niskanubo. Because the fact that Yaakov gave his son the measurement of 2 slime, which is like 2 coins, a little bit more wool. It's not exact. He's saying like he gave him this cloak, right? Basically like a little bit of extra. His brothers were jealous of him. Niskanubo Achiv Nisgalgal Hadavar V'Yardu Avasil Mitzrayim, and ultimately caused our forefathers to go to Mitzrayim, right? So because of a little jealousy, because of the fact that he gave one child something a little bit extra, it caused the entire story of the slavery. Now the commentators obviously point out, what are you talking about? The bris bein habsarim already. We have the promise that your children will be slaves elsewhere. So they there are different answers, but the simplest answer is that when did the counting the 400 years start? It says that they were there for 400 years. They weren't really there for 400 years. We do the math. We point out they're only there for like 210 years. So when did the 400 years count? It really started from the birth of Yitzchak. Okay, so even though God says they'll be slaves for 400 years, if you do the math simply from Moshe's genealogy, you makes it clear that they couldn't have been there for 400 years because his mother entered and he left, and you do whatever. We're not going to go through the math right now. So bottom line is the Mefarshim said there's only 210 years. So what was 400 years? God basically found a way to start counting it earlier because once Yitzchak was born, his children were not really settlers; they were kind of like strangers in another land. So the point is that the slavery could have been adjusted in different ways. It didn't have to be 210 years of such intense slavery. We see already that it could have been adjusted in very different ways, and it was because of the jealousy that the Jewish people need to have such an intense experience. The Barbanel says that the reason for the slavery was because sometimes by going through difficult situations with someone, that actually brings you closer together. The jealousy and the hatred basically brought them apart. They needed an experience to bring them closer, right? Sometimes you go through something harrowing with someone else, and like you're friends for life, right? You ever find yourself in like some crazy situation, like that moment, the vulnerability, the need to be there for each other, etc. You're there for life. And similarly, the Jewish people needed to experience something more intense than a lighter level slavery, a lighter level, discomfort of being a ger, of being a stranger in a land. They needed something much more intense. Why? Because of the fact that there was this jealousy, and therefore we need to ensure that we treat our children the same. Now, it doesn't mean we have a notion of chanoch lenar pi darko. Obviously, each child needs to have their own unique focus, and they have their own strengths and weaknesses, and we need to respond in like, but it does mean that they have to recognize, we have to somehow convey that we don't like a child more than one other, and Yaakov made a mistake by conveying that how he liked Yosef more than the other brothers. Okay, another teaching from Avamar Rav Bar Mechasim Rav Chama Bar Gurya Marav La'olam Yichazer Adam Yeshev V'ir Shishivasa Krova. You should settle in a city which is new. What does this mean? Shemitoch sheshivasa krova. It doesn't mean close, but it means that because it's a newer city, avonoseha mu'atin, it has less sins. Okay, let's try to unpack this. So, what's the example? Okay, so this is Lot speaking. Lot is running away from Sodom, and he's overwhelmed. And he turns to the angels and he says, "Look, there's a city which is krova, it's close and it's small." Okay, he says it's close and it's small. Therefore, allow me to go there and save the city. Okay, so the Gemara asks, "My krova." What does he mean when he says it's close? Ilema krova d'mikarva, that it's actually physically close in proximity. Vizuta, and it's small. Vaka chazula. The angels see this. All you say is go to that city, right? Meaning, obviously, it's a close city. You don't have to say because it's close. It's right here, obviously. Ela mitoch sheshivaso krova, because the fact that it is new, meaning it is less settled. Avonosea mutzarin, and therefore it has less sins. Okay, so basically saying that when the cities of Sodom were destroyed, God is looking at all the cities and tallying up their sins. So this city, which as we'll see in a moment, is a younger city, it was settled 1 year later than the other cities of Sodom. Lot is arguing since it has less sins, it's been settled for a short amount of time, therefore don't destroy the city. Okay, let's read a few more lines like Gemara. Then, I just this morning I saw a shot which I think helps me understand this, which I think also could make this relevant to all of us. So he says, Amar of Abin, first Rav Abin proves this. My kra, what's the pasuk? Tichsiv, imalta na. He says, please may I run away. Okay, imalta na shama, please may I run there. So the word please, na, nun aleph, begematria, nun v'chad, is the gematria of 51. Okay, nun v'chad have. V'shel Sodom, nun v'beis. Sodom was settled for 52 years, and this was settled for 51 years. Okay, so one less year. Okay, now the Gemara says something which I never understood until this morning, and now it just tells us, like almost parenthetically, let me tell you about the years of comfort in the city of Sodom. Okay, really the Gemara ends over here, saying it's a year less, and therefore it has less sins, meaning you tally up the sins by how long it's been there. You don't, and it's been there for a year less. But the Gemara says something interesting, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts, but I'll tell you what I saw this morning. Vishalvasa, it's the tranquility of the cities of Sodom, Chaf Vav, were 26 years. Dichsiv, because it says, Shteimas Rishana Avdu Es Kedar Omer. Remember, there are these fights going on in that region, and there are 4 kings and 5 kings, and basically the cities of Sodom for 12 years they served Kedar Omer. Vishloshes Rishana Mardu. For 13 years they rebelled against Kedar Omer. There was tension. Uva Arba Es Rishana, in the 14th year, that's when they started fighting. So basically you have 12 plus 13 plus 1, that is 26, and so 26 years there was peace in Sodom, and the other 26 years for the 52, that's when there was there's 26 years of peace, the other 26 years of fighting, and that's what we're learning about Sodom. Why is this? Who cares? Like, why is this just like a parenthetical point? By the way, they had 26 years of tranquility. So I think it was in the Ben Yoyada. I'm sure, I actually don't remember who I saw it in, but basically seems to explain, if I understood correctly, and maybe I'm embellishing a little bit or taking it a bit of a different angle, but the basic point is that the year, during the years of struggle, and as difficult as the struggle is, there was less opportunity for sin. Right? In other words, where's Sodom's sinfulness come from, and where does so much sinfulness come from? It came from a place of pleasure, place of plenty. Right? In other words, they had so much they didn't want to share with others. During the years of oppression, they had a different mindset. It's specifically during the years of shalva, during the years of pleasure, during the years when they had much and abundance, they didn't want to share with others and they mistreated others. That's what caused the sin. Meaning, it wasn't the 52 years in total which caused all the sin. Yeah, of course, they weren't perfect, but it was really during the 26 years of plenty, that's when they were really sinning. And that's why the Gemara over here tells us how many years of plenty they had. And that explains also, it would seem to explain this idea of settling in a city which is younger. It's not necessarily younger. Yes, over here in this context, it was a younger city, but the point is that there was less materialism in the city. Meaning, settle in a city. What the Gemara ultimately, I think, perhaps is taking away, is saying, settle in a city which is a little behind. Yes, I mean, there practically was behind because it only started being settled later. But settle in a city which is a little behind in all the materialism. We always get made fun of Baltimore. Whatever happened in New York happens in Baltimore 20 years later. And that's like that. People make fun of. I would say it's a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor, right? In other words, if there's certain materialistic trends which pick up, it's good to be behind. It's good to be behind because materialism ultimately, Vayishman, Yeshurun, Vayivat. So the Torah tells us that when Yeshurun, when the Jewish people, when they became fattened, when they had too much, Vayivat, that's when they kick away. In other words, there is a certain, we don't want to be struggling, but when we struggle, we're less inclined to sin. We have less pleasure, we have less time. It's when we have more time, we have more leisure, when we have more things, that's what ultimately could lead us to a place of arrogance, to a place of sinfulness, and therefore settle in a city which has, perhaps if I were to take a takeaway over here, settle in a city which is a little less material. Settle in a Baltimore before you settle in a 5 towns. I hope no one's listening to this. But the idea is that in doing so, the less materialism, the better off you are in terms of the accumulation of sin. Have a wonderful day.